Have you ever been in a place where you knew that something needed to change energetically for you? You needed to relocate, and whether that was energetically in friendships or that you literally were looking for your forever home. I am super excited to bring on the show today Sandra Williams, who I got to meet not long ago, and we have kept in touch and we've seen each other since. And in that process, I have learned so much from you, Sandra, about Harmony Estates and this whole idea of finding a forever place or your next place and having it be a place that you love to be for so many reasons. So thank you for being on the show today. I'm super excited to have you here.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. I really appreciate you reaching out and allowing us to have this conversation.
Absolutely. So our listeners are people who are going to be listening live, but they're also people who are going to come in and be listening later on demand. And we just want to welcome everybody here. It's just so wonderful to have this beautiful growing community. And Sandra, as you are thinking about Harmony Estates, how did you get here? Because you have done so many different things. It hasn't been necessarily a straight road for you, but it's been a heartfelt road for you.
Oh, that's so perfect. I love that heartfelt road. And that's what I feel like all of our paths are, right? Just to listen to our heart. So I worked with my family enterprise for 14 years. And that's where all of the beautiful talent, treasures, and time I got to accumulate through that with the finance industry, also with project management and debt fund investments. So I was able to get a plethora of experience I probably wouldn't have otherwise gotten. Um, you know, Entering out of college or university. So I'm super grateful. But throughout that path, I took on many leadership roles in the community with many nonprofits, with women empowerment, Latina empowerment, um, also just the Latino community as a whole with the sustainable home ownership. And then with that, I even went on to help even build homes with Prosperity Homes, with another, beautiful, heartfelt passion project that I was a part of and still am. But just throughout my career, I've just taken a lot of leadership roles on, giving back to the community and also learning about my authentic expression of leadership. And so that's where Harmony Estates really, little by little since the beginning, it's been growing and brewing because I knew naturally that I could lead my own business. And I have as a partnership with my family enterprise. So I kind of joke that I was an entrepreneurship with training wheels.
That's so cool. Yes.
Because it still was the entrepreneurial path, because it was building up, the companies and the ecosystem. So again, definitely heartfelt because it was all in collaboration with my family.
So when you went to college, did you know that at some point that you would be working in the family enterprise, or were you at that point looking for a new adventure and planning to do other things? And then when you finished up with college, university decided that you wanted to go ahead and work there. How did you navigate that part of the story?
Yeah, it was definitely an interesting crossroads. That was the pivot point of where I went. I could have gone in so many different ways after university. I was able to earn my master's in the UK, so I studied at University of Southampton. And so I believe by me leaving out of the country and then coming back, I felt the importance of being closer to my family. And so I felt that that was like the undertone of that decision. And then also, it was right after the recession. So it was 2009. And it was an interesting climate, right? With, taking on, different roles. I had applied to many nonprofits I was looking to do internationally. And there was internships that I could have taken on as well. But I chose, my father reached out to me and he said, "Hey, Sandra, this is, the environment that the economy's in right now. It would be really great if we can partner up." And he said, "We can do this for a time period and then we can see how it goes
Yes.
and then see how it will grow." And so it was such a unique place, but I really feel it was that undertone and talking about energetics, that the undertone of being closer to the family, from leaving and being abroad for a year in a different culture, different community. So that was really the crossroads that really just kind of intersected to a perfect beginning of a 14-year journey.
And I love that he said, come for a while, come stay, come. I love that he reached out and
Mhm.
that he was offering, but wasn't demanding. That's so
Oh yeah, he
beautiful.
wasn't. Yeah.
Yeah, that's incredible. And then tell me a little bit about, because you are in real estate,
Mhm.
tell me a little bit about how different it was to live in the UK.
Oh my goodness. So I do have the lens of a student at that time. I did have a good friend of mine that I did get to see from her point of view as well. But for me, I was a student, so I definitely went under the student, umbrella of work living in the dormitory, and I was able to apply. And there was this program called Across the Pond, and so it was actually a facilitator who actually helped with the whole process and oversaw the housing, and the education, the paying for the tuition and for the overall like lifestyle. It was really amazing to get that type of support.
Yeah.
But overall, I had studied abroad prior, and I had already had grew a community out there in the UK. So I was able to see how that lifestyle too. So it was very customary that the college students or the university students, they would go the first year into the dormitory, and then they would, after the first year, because it was typically 3 for them, and after the first year, then they get a group of friends or people who they were, they connected well with, and they would all rent a home. And that was really interesting to see. And so that's why it was really easy for me to go travel back, because there was just a house full of college students and then they would do that. And so I'm sure that's very common there, but it was very new for me. And so I was able to see how, the utilities ran, and how just the way they have the outskirts and then they're like going into town was, it was a lot different from the different lifestyles. So it was a great experience to see just the leasing out process to students. But again, that lens is specifically from a time period of just students. So it would be so interesting to go back out there to go and buy or live out there in a different context.
The one thing that I have gotten from my experience in Europe, and actually any other place, is their refrigerators are so small. It's just expected that you'll stop at the market and pick up the fresh whatever in order
Mhm.
to make that evening. And I've always been amazed by that. And even being willing to go out to very specific places to get your water. Like they have running water in the house, right? But I remember us being in Greece for a period of time, staying with dear family friends of ours. And we all got on the train and took the train, and we had all the big water bottles and stuff to go out and get very specific water in order to bring back. And this was part of their lifestyle. And, I just open up the tap here and drink out. I might choose to filter it, but that's the
Mhm.
water that I get, right?
That's
And to have
amazing.
such a different, purposeful way of accessing food or water, or like you say, living out in the outskirts rather than in the city, and the difference between those. And the other piece is the amount of public transportation in other places that's so easily available.
That's what I was going to hint to, because I was able to live that life without having a vehicle. And it was so easy to go into town. And that was the thing, going into town, it was all walking distance, if not like a bus ride away. If there was something else, it was definitely a bus ride away. And it was just so, the lifestyles, yeah, exactly, just completely different.
So if you happen to have an opportunity, if you're listening in, to go to Europe and spend some time there, I highly encourage people to get out of the country just to see what else is out there. And speaking of that, we'll get back to Harmony Estates, but you talked about prosperity homes where you go out of the country to help build as well. I would love to hear more about that project or those types of projects. I know that when I was in college that we had a very, very active every single fall group that would go and build homes as well for people who didn't have, they were living in cardboard boxes in a lot of situations. And so going out and building and providing a place for people to live that I just take it for granted, right? And
Yes.
so here you are involved in Prosperity Homes, which is doing a very similar kind of thing. I would love to hear more about this giving back.
Yes, I felt just a very natural, collaborative environment with the group. And I think that really speaks to, again, going back to being heart driven. I just, whenever I feel that there's like this resonance or alignment, like I get drawn and I can't help it. So then I just jumped in. So when I heard about Prosperity Homes, it is a beautiful nonprofit organization based out here in Southern California. And um, I guess the participants, the main, donors tend to be in the real estate or finance industry, and they really just believe it's their the mission to serve and give back to a community in Ensenada, Mexico. And so it's building homes over to migrant workers, also refugees. And so we would go out to Ensenada, and it would be a group of other professionals, just giving and donating their time, their money, and their resources to go out and build. And we work together in collaboration with, I believe it's called, I can't remember their names right now, but another organization that has a full-on infrastructure where they don't just build just one home. They have many communities that they have built for. So I think it was really beautiful to have the network of Prosperity Homes is really the support of, the real estate professionals, entrepreneur professionals. And then it's really Baja Bound. There you go. Baja Bound is the organization that is just heavily networked and strongly integrated into the community, into where they're tapped into the education system. They're tapped into the different farmlands and seeing, like, really learning and getting a pulse of how to delegate and channel those resources. So it's just a really great community to be a part of, and still am. There was this period where I was going every month, every other month on a build. And it is such a heart-opening experience. I mean, you're just giving just from a place of love. And so it was just bringing clothes, bringing, toiletries, things like that. And it was just a rhythm I got into for a good 2.5 years. And after that, I could also see that was a good crossroad point as well, because I was also noticing the value systems that I really feel innate are in me, but I know can be very different and from different people, even in my family. And I think that is really where it's not to make anyone wrong. It's not to say one's higher than the other. I believe my whole family they're all givers in their sense, and they just have different, I want to say, preferences at the end of the day on how they want to allocate their giving back. So it was a great point to really reconcile, like, where my heart is and how I like to give back. And so Prosperity Homes was a beautiful place to channel that for many years.
And I so love that you had the opportunity to go do that. And I also love that there are these professionals who are in the financial industry, also in real estate, to understand that as they are helping to facilitate other people getting a home, that they can then be turning around and helping somebody else who just wants a place to be able to sleep that's safe, right? And so Jessica De Leon, who is the person that we met through probably 2 years ago, when she was still at her other, when they were still renting before they bought their place. I know that she's also been part of that, and just am so grateful for her introducing us to Prosperity Homes, but also introducing the two of us, just with her incredible open heart and the things that she's doing as well. So tell me a little bit more about how Harmony Estates came about, because you had worked, you'd gone overseas, you had learned and had done a ton of things over there. You came back with a different perspective. It was 2009. In the States, we were definitely, feeling that we were the tail, not the dog, so to speak, right? We were this definite reverberation throughout the economy. And so your dad calls and says, hey, for a period of time, come hang out, come work, come learn, come, put your skills to application. And so you chose to do that. And so in that process, you were learning leadership skills. You were getting the opportunity to see how entrepreneurial really works, because it's not just a textbook of this is how we think it should work. It's the application of it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So how did then you move to Harmony Estates?
Yes, I mean, that's so funny, because I went from theoretical, right? The university platform is all of that, which was so beautiful. And then I went in, in collaboration with my father, and then I went on to do with my brothers. So, and my mother and my stepmom. So what ended up being is a family business, and at first I was trying it on, and I just have a personality of like, I'm going all in. I have to go all in, because in order I can't be this, I think it was like 6 months. I was like, I can't be 1 foot in, 1 foot out. It just didn't, it wasn't in my nature to do that. And especially with it being my family. And so it was just this interesting, like, okay, we need to start having some meetings. Like, let's get this thing going. So we did. And it was it was just the perfect terrain to grow from. And the application was hands-on to beyond hands-on, because my father at that period already had been in the industry for over 25 plus years. So he already had a huge network, and it was really just building infrastructure and just, synthesizing what was going on and streamline it, and problem solving, like getting creative, being innovative. There was just so much change with technology from that 2009 to 2020. I'll just use that period.
Right.
There's so much changes in softwares, and he was old school, I was new school. So he was with the whiteboards, and I was like, there's this software we can put it on.
Have you ever considered?
And it was just such an interesting, like innovation, but traditional old school brass tacks. Like, how do we get this done? So it was a great dance for a really long time. And I never thought I would leave, to be honest. So the big crossroads, of course, is, I think, for everyone's story going to be for going on forward has been the pandemic.
Yes.
I had taken a series of leadership programming. I was a business coach for these women who were taking a leadership program over at USC.
Yes.
It's a multicultural women's entrepreneur program. So I was an entrepreneur coach and leadership coach. And it was this beautiful programming that I was part of for a good 4 years. I'm still a part of the community. However, I'm not an active coach where I'm coaching ladies anymore. So I was doing that. And I was also part of the board for a business management academy with the NLBWA, and I was doing that prior. So prior to the USC, I had been doing coaching and just expressing all of my, it's just so natural. I'm learning with what's going on in my business, and it was just natural for me to go and give back and volunteer in these capacities. Because when I was with the business management for NLBWA, that was all volunteer. When I was at USC coaching women, that was all volunteer. And so again, with Prosperity Homes, all volunteer. So it's this beautiful, I have, and then I give. It's just such an innate part of me.
Yes.
And so 2020 comes and it's just such a cauldron of pressure cooker where I really got to see, I had been doing this work. I've been sharing my wisdom, and a big thing has been authenticity and being genuinely like, what are my values? And there was this like this shift that was really like splittering off with my family ecosystem and my own, because I feel on my own, and this is where Harmony Estates is, I believe I see it and I feel it as an ecosystem on its own.
Right.
And
yes,
it's just it's big what I have like brewing inside me. And then I was just noticing the contrast of the family ecosystem and what Harmony Estates is. And so I had to walk that line, you know, for a good 3 years, from 2020 to 2023 now, because I went independent this year, because I have incorporated my company in 2020, got my broker's license in 2020. So it's so interesting. So much was happening, right? I had already been en route to take on my own. I stayed with the family company for a good 2 years, right? Trying to see how we were all going to navigate post-pandemic. So it was a unique time. I just felt it was an individuation process that I would believe that was at hand, because nothing was wrong. And I think a lot of people even ask me that. They're like, your family enterprise, like how why? You know, they're like almost like, why are you gonna leave when basically when you're set, essentially, right? You're financially really well taken care of. You have such a great ecosystem, great I guess positioning, or you know, relationships with so many great organizations. And again, a lot of people are like, why? And I believe again with Harmony Estates is the value system, the way I'm at my point of view, my worldview of how I'm helping the community with real estate is just, it's so different. It's so different. So I had to choose me. And I think that was the hardest thing, to go and leave a place that was very comfortable, very well sustaining, and just saying, no, I'm going to take this leap of faith for myself.
What I so love is that you did it heart-centered first, right? Mm-hmm. It wasn't out of anger. There wasn't this huge eruption. It was, you know, yes, lots of different little pieces along the way.
For sure.
Sandra, my response when I saw you recently was, really? You left the family business and went out on your own? But there was this lightness about you, mm-hmm. and that I just had to know more about. But I do want to tell our listeners just for a second here that where I am, there has been a huge storm that's come through. And so every now and then we're getting a little bit of lag. So it's completely on my side with the storm, but this conversation is so good. We're going to just keep moving forward with it. Okay. So Sandra, what was that? You know, in 2020, you had figured out that you wanted to have your own broker. You wanted to, you know, have incorporate all the different things that you did in order to set yourself up. At what point did you say, I'm taking a deep breath, and energetically, I'm going to continue to love my family and receive their support and love. However, I am going to choose energetically to take a deep breath and a huge step forward and fully embrace Harmony Estates?
Yeah, it was one of the biggest things I do is I self-counsel through looking at my gene keys.
Yes.
It is a beautiful synthesis of information of all the different wisdoms. And it's a genetic profile on how my genes are expressed in either a shadow state, a gift state, or a city state where it's just like pure light. And so I've seen one of the key areas, just super vulnerably to share, is separation is actually one of the most challenging things of my chart. It's something that is my the work I'm here to master. So for me, that deep breath was choosing to master myself, because that was something that I feel, again, with the authenticity and the leadership training, and especially the energetic work I had been doing with, I am a trained astrologer. I am trained in gene keys. I am also now a practicing Hare Krishna with Krishna consciousness. And so there is this deep level of embodiment that I'm choosing. So that deep breath that you said in that moment, it was me speaking my truth actually to my brother, because I said to him, this is what I want. This is what I'm really desiring. I had shared this with my father, and I blessed his heart, because he is still, he's like, we can do both. He has such a big heart. He's like, you can do this and this. And I was like, oh, I can't. And then my brother, it was said that conversation, it was in December, and he was like, if this is what you want, like, let's then go, then do this. And so he was that massive accountability, where I believe a healthy masculine gives, is where it's that full presence in listening and what you're saying, and inviting you to take action. And so again, it was a crossroads of theory, of all kind of the same thing, where I had been training myself energetically, and now it was time for me to self-counsel on a really massive level. So that deep breath, it took a lot of breaths beforehand, and even afterwards, I feel now it's just this constant relationship of faith that's necessary in the unknown. So here I am.
Thank you so much for sharing that part of the story and being vulnerable with that. And I really appreciate you talking about the gene keys, because I think that it is a way to really come into a different way of looking at ourselves. And look back. For me, I'm still in that place of learning more about it. When Jessica was doing a training and I was there, she says, hey, do you happen to have your chart? And so I gave it to her. And, having been born overseas in a little tiny village, it's kind of a huge area that they encompass to say, yeah, this is kind of it. And whether, if you were born in like a large major city, they would be like, this is for sure it. And so I've always taken these things as what can I learn from this? And when she looked at my gene key chart and she said, oh, you have education on there twice. You're a teacher. It was like this absolute affirmation for me of course, I'm always teaching. Of course, when I was not even a teenager yet, I was teaching. I was offering piano lessons. I was doing all these different things when I was 10 and 12 years old. And by the time that I was 14, I had income coming in consistently because I was teaching. I was training. But that's what I was doing, and learning those leadership skills of what does it look like to teach. And if somebody learns from a very, very different way, can I figure out a way to speak their language, so to speak, to help them learn the new skill or add a skill in to what they are doing. And so for me, that just blew things wide open in terms of gene keys of, oh, there really is something to this. And and finding those places of being uncomfortable and learning to have, like you said, self-coach, those conversations of what does this look like? Could I choose to, rather than I have to, right? Could I choose to? What would it look like if I chose to take on this project and come at it from a different perspective? And what can I learn about myself in that place, in that time? And I will say that when we brought a house up for sale, process with things that I learned had to do bristle in that space. And so that was a really helpful thing for me. And that gave me space then to start unpacking. Why did the word moving have such weight for me? And part of that had to do with just being a kid and us moving every year or every 4 years or every 2 years, depending on whatever the assignments my parents had gotten, right? And so there's still some unpacking to do for me with that, but definitely being open for that conversation. What does that look like? So when you talk about Harmony Estates, I love the name, and it's so heart led, and that whole idea of harmony that as a musician, somebody was sharing Al Cliff. He was talking about why he really liked this particular person, Kathy Mullins, as she sang alto. And people were like, why is it that when she sings with the soprano, it doesn't matter who the soprano is, but she sings it like she is the melody. She's not singing it like she's a harmonic part. She's singing it because she's carrying, right? She's all of it is in that part for her. It's not a secondary part. She's not playing second fiddle. None of those things. And I remember Al Cliff saying that, and that just sticking with me. So when you talk about Harmony Estates and estates being plural, I have this idea in my mind of different vibrations that are in harmony together, different people living on different properties that may abut or not, but yet there's this beautiful dome over the area that is all in harmony. And so when the butterflies come through or the birds or whatever, it's this space that the biosphere is in harmony.
Yes, that's so beautiful. Thank you. Yes, I with harmony, there's just so many different vantage points that we can like enter that archetype, right, of harmony. For myself, I believe one of my talents and my gifts are to really create and craft harmonious agreements. I believe that each relationship is an agreement.
Yes.
We make a series of agreements throughout a relationship.
Yes.
And even throughout a series of the transaction before you even start, there's a series of agreements that are being done or created.
Yes.
So I see harmony in so many different ways of one, the craft of being able to create an agreement with one another that are two separate parties that have never met each other and who are looking to have a shared common goal. I believe the home is also a very sacred place, but yet very much a 3D, material need. So there is this harmony as well going in, with the different lenses of how you approach a home, right? Are you approaching it as a sacred place, or are you approaching it as an investment and looking at it purely from the lens of economic, which none of it's wrong. It's just there's that gradient that, we can speak to. Yes. There's so much of a gradient. And so I knew this was the path for me for real estate, because I do have a really deep relationship with the divine, with God. And I really look to channel that and however I can. And I felt with real estate, it was the best alignment for me because it's still really tangible. It's very material based, and there is this exchange. And I'm my endeavor, is my integrity to constantly be in integrity with my heart and with the contracts that are being created. If you think about that, that's actually what we're doing every day for all of our lives. But I'm doing it super consciously with my career. And so that's where I look to every agreement, every contract. How is it going to lay, once it's done and in concrete and it's completed. So to me, is me also being in harmony with that agreement that has been done and has been completed. So going into like even universal laws, like karmically, like how is this agreement going to lay? So there's a lot of different ways that I can approach harmony with with music and the different harmonious cadences that even when you're speaking, I see harmony in how different people who I speak to speak really fast. They're like, how do we get this transaction done? Right? It's like such a fast pace. And then I meet them in that cadence and I'm like, all right, here we go. And I enjoy it. But then I now know how to change the tune and like smooth down into what my natural cadence is. So harmony it's just this constant dance that I'm doing. And I feel with Harmony Estates, it's really about understanding the undertones of what's being there to show itself and acknowledge it, because and the reality is like harmony is always in harmony. Like everything is already naturally in harmony. It's just us remembering it.
Wow. We're going to take a super fast commercial break here and we'll be right back.
Okay.
Do you wonder if you can actually make a difference in a war-torn country half a world away? One man has decided a difference can be made. The Mama Lynn Center in Central Congo gives women who have been ravaged by war a chance at a new life. Women and their families, including husbands, come to learn how to move forward. The women are taught sewing skills to be able to create an income. At the end of their year-long training, each graduate receives a sewing machine. This is where your support dramatically impacts lives. $150 US provides a new hand-operated sewing machine. Here's the link and QR code to join Sarah and Michael Stockham in positively changing futures through the Mama Lynn Sewing Machine Project. We are grateful for the opportunity to share how you can make a significant difference.
We are so excited to have this conversation today with Sandra Williams, talking about Harmony Estates, different things that she has done, everything being heart-led and looking to be in harmony as she does that. And so as we're continuing our conversation, Sandra, I love that you're talking about these spaces of harmony, of the agreements, of every single agreement that we have in relationship is all about that they are agreements. And when we come into a huge agreement in terms of selling a home or purchasing a home, that we are looking for the right next best step, not necessarily being able to see 8 years down in the future, right? But being able to see the right next best step. And so in that process, how do you help people who seem to be in different places, either emotionally or for some reason the word theologically, which is, I'm surprised, but yes, that comes forward. How do you help people who are in different places be able to come to in a place of an agreement? What are some of the skills, the energetic skills that you use to make that happen?
Yes, I feel big one has been to clear away a lot of distractions for myself and my own personal life. So that's number one, is that I'm really present. I know it's an ongoing battle. So for me, it's so when I'm listening, I can really see and listen and where they're actually at that moment. So even sometimes when someone's saying like, okay, I'm going to move forward, I want to do this, I can still hear resistance in their voice, or I could still hear, there's a, what is there's a subject to portion to this statement.
Right.
And so
energetically.
exactly. And then it's like, and that's how we all are. And so I think it's not judging it, but it's just being fully aware of this. And so I give a lot of space for that. And so yeah, just listening. And I put even in simply on my, my letter that I speak to clients and cover letter, it's like, I'm here to meet you where you're at. I'm here to meet you where you're at and guide you along the process. It is my responsibility to support you with resources and provide you everything you need to make the best decision. But at the end of the day, I'm here for support. You're the one deciding. And that's where energetically there's a lot of integrity and it's clean. I believe with the agreement is because I am not taking anyone's power in making a decision.
Yeah.
I'm not forcing anything that's not natural for them naturally to have wanted to take on. I just inquire to hear if this is something and really listen to see if this is something that they want to move forward with. And so giving them as much as information and context as they can have to, or the capacity to, and bandwidth to hold. And that's what I deliver. And then from that on, we move forward to the next step, because reality is not going to give you a nice encyclopedia and having all of these, citations of everything. Reality is everything that's held in this, even this container, right? We're only able to speak in this amount of time. And this is what I'm able to express to you at this amount of time, right? And who I am presently in the moment. It's like that in every moment with the conversation for the transaction.
True. I really appreciate you talking about giving context. And what really spoke to my heart in that, Sandra, was that you're not taking anyone's power away. You're not forcing something forward, that you are saying at every single step, this is the information, what do you want to do with it, and laying out possibilities and giving the person the opportunity to breathe inside of that. Yes, there are things that have deadlines that come up with them, right?
Mm-hmm.
But helping to mitigate those by giving the information and to support the person where they are to the best of your ability. And I think that there's something so critical about giving that context. And you're right that that some people, I can think of some conversations I've had recently where my answer has been, yes or no. Inside, I'm thinking, I have an addendum to this. This is the right next step forward, right? Are we going to buy a peach tree? Yes, we are. My addendum is this the right time of year to be planting a peach tree? Some of those kinds of things, right?
Absolutely.
And so just moving forward with here is the yes, but there may be some pieces that go along with this that need to be worked out in the way in the future.
Yes, and you're actually also speaking to something that I really really love to address, and it's something that I feel like this is also a big part of my talent, is to speak to the unspoken agreements.
Yes.
So what you're just saying exactly about the subject to and the addendums, I like to bring that all to the surface. With my client, one, I was sitting down with her about selling. She's lived in her home for 30 years. I was asking her questions to bring into the conversation of what's going to happen now, as your sense of security, for your sense of security, as we take on a leap into a space where you're not going to have that. We're going to be looking for another property, but what are you going to harness as your own sense of security? Because this is what this home has signified for you for so long.
Yes.
So that was a powerful conversation. Another powerful conversation is another family who's lived in an apartment for so long, but they're a multi-generational family, but they're going to now multi-generationally move into another home and to purchase a home. Different context. Renting an apartment with different family members, different agreement, to then now buying a real estate, different agreements, right? So I brought that to the surface from the beginning. I go, these are going to be different responsibilities, elderly care, like taking care of them, equity. Let's talk about this now. Everyone's in the honeymoon season right now. Everyone wants to go shopping for a home, but let's have these hard conversations now.
Right.
And so that's another skill set I believe in, that I have and that I'm bringing into harmony, is because there is a distortion. There are these knots in our ways of being, you know what I mean? Like we just we have them, we have to work them out, or we can either ignore them, or another way to say knots is like an unconscious pattern, an unconscious agreement, an unspoken agreement. And so because of all of the work I've done, I really look to integrate that into a really practical way. And that's how I love with real estate. It's like, okay, your mom and your dad, you're a couple, not married, and your mom and your dad are all going to move in together. Okay, there are some things that are going to need to get discussed as far as agreements.
Right.
So I'm enjoying that because I'm bringing the humanity out of everyone, and I'm enriching the conversation to topics that wouldn't otherwise be done from an energetic standpoint versus just a purely economic standpoint. And so that's where I feel like, yes, there's a lot of different people doing real estate, but the way I'm my own medicine and how I'm delivering it is really just unique on its own.
And it really is medicine. I think that for people, I know that when we bought our first house, I was just stressed all the way through. I mean, there wasn't any part of it that I was like, oh, this is easy. But I knew it was the right decision. It just made sense, right? All the different pieces made sense. But I still felt uncomfortable with it because it seemed like such a big decision. We sold that house and bought a second house. That made more sense. I'd gone through the process once. It'd only been 9 years since we had purchased the house, so things hadn't changed a whole lot. We lived in our last house for 20 years, and I will tell you that the real estate law had changed dramatically in those 20 years. And so things that I thought, having gone through this prior, not something that I had done on a constant basis, I thought I had a pretty good context or idea of what to expect. And it was so different than what I was expecting, and it's completely okay.
Yeah.
It was so different, right? And so there were moments of having to learn and then listen internally about how I felt about these things that I was learning about, and how do I respond to that? What is a response, and what is a wow, that just is so different? And finding the spaces to be listening internally while this huge decision, all these different pieces are moving constantly throughout the whole process, because some things are on a timeline. And, knowing that the end result was exactly what we wanted, and finding a way to come to that end result in a way that worked for everybody. All those pieces, there are just so many of them. And I love that you bring out those conversations and say, here are some things that really need to be somehow addressed. And whether it's in your presence with you, helping to bring harmony to the conversation, or they choose to talk about it later on. Exactly. Having those conversations of what does this look like and feel like. Part of our decision to sell was because our adult daughter came home and spent 5 weeks with us at Christmas. She can work from any place in the world, and is going back to the beginning of our conversation, is planning to go to the UK this coming summer and spend a couple months there. Exactly, because she can go any place in the world and work. But after 5 weeks with us, she said, I'm ready. I'm ready for you guys to sell. I'm ready for the next step of all of our lives to happen, and for us to be able to move closer to her. Much easier drive. You don't have to fly. And is she going to stay where she's living right now for the next 20 years? No, she's, going to go to the UK next summer, I think, and is looking at what other places does she want to live. And again, just finding a space that that the right answer for that particular moment is the right answer. It doesn't need to be one for a lifetime. It's just the right next step.
Exactly. Yeah. I feel like a lot that we're actually operating from, it needs to be coming from that place because there's so much change happening. And it's almost like we have to get used to how much change is happening. I also feel like there is this, we would be over reliant on the material items. And I feel like they're, the divine's asking us not to be,
Right.
and it's as how can we be as, efficient, of course, making the most financial, economically sound, sustainable, decisions, of course,
Yes.
very grounded, but also there is this detachment of like recognizing that there is a bigger, you know, mission at play that we don't know and that we're listening for to make sure that we're in tune to it.
Yes. Yes. And that just leads me into the next point that I've spent time in personally asking. I knew that where we are currently living is the right next step for us. There were just so many different pieces about it. We asked for first right of refusal on the homestead 20 years ago. And I mean, there were just so many pieces, right? This was not a quick decision. This wasn't just something. But I have been finding myself asking exactly those questions, Sandra, of what is the bigger mission? What is the bigger purpose of this relocation? What does this look like? And being a teacher, impacting lives, what's the best methodology for doing that? And I'm so grateful for Julianne Meyer. She's now Mercurus, for her reaching out and saying, come join us with Achieve TV and come have your own show. And because it gives me an opportunity to continue to teach, right? And it gives me a global reach with that. And so for me, the gratitude is just, so expansive on so many different things. I wasn't expecting her to ever reach out. I knew that she had her own shows. I wasn't expecting her to become a network president. I wasn't expecting her and Drew to ask me to marry them. All these different things I wasn't expecting, right? But every single one was obviously ordained, and the gates opened. And so it was the right place to take the step through. So Sandra, we've talked about so many different things, but what's the one thing or the few things that you really want to reiterate for people to listen to or to really take away from our time together, friend?
Yes. I believe self-study is the best medicine. That's really where, even though it can make economic sense or, the comfort level or this is in alignment to your values, because it still even wasn't, the family business is still in alignment. I'm very much family driven. But self-study is what really helped me listen to that bigger picture of what was the right expansion step for myself, which is and always will be very different from the other. And so that's one key piece I'd like to share is that, we are the most accurate point of view of our life and the direction of it. And so we can go definitely feel resourced by others, and it's so nourishing, but self-study is definitely encouraged. And the other would be with real estate. I just love how it's the anchor point of our reality, of our everyday life. It's where we commune for our daily life, and it's also an investment. It's an economic investment, and it has the capacity to also evolve from just being a home where you live in to, and the next evolution is being a landlord and having rentals. And then the next evolution is having a portfolio. And then the next evolution is this generational transition and having a healthy transfer of wealth. And so I feel like real estate has its own evolution, just as our own individual self-study has our evolution. And so I love that there's this harmonic dance that we can give and take to each other. So those are the two things I'd like to leave with those.
Thank you, Sandra, so much for taking time out of your super busy schedule for us to be able to have this conversation, to share these incredible nuggets with the audience. I just so appreciate that.
Thank you. I appreciate you reaching out, and I love our conversation. It was so nourishing.
Yes, so very nourishing. Thank you. And as we are finishing up today, I just want to let you know that there's going to be on our next episode. Yes, we are actually in season 2, but there is something I just want to do as a little teaser here. And let me find my little teaser. Here it is. It's just a little 5-second thing. But the network president for E360, Aaron Himes, when we were talking about some things that I've been working on with Simply Sarah, and he knew that we were relocating, he said, you know what, this is something you may consider. So here it is. So next time that we're together, we'll be sharing some things about Simply Gardening. We have this beautiful space and very, very loved. Family has lived here for generations. And my mom is 88. She's been taking care of things the best that she can. And we walked into this space knowing that we would be working on gardening and caring for the land and for the animals that are here. And so we look forward to sharing parts of that with you. And so thank you so much for being here for this particular conversation. And I know that you were nourished just like I was in this space.